Hello, we're doing this. This is Harley Liechty, your host for Business as Usual. Welcome to the first episode. This is my office. I'm just in the middle of. Let's get started, shall we? Dear God, thank you so much for everything that you provide, everything that you are. I pray that, Lord, this is purely obedience for me on what I'm doing here. You know that I have all sorts of doubts, all sorts of second guessing about doing a podcast in a sea of all the other podcasts out there. Why in the heck would I be a person to add to the noise? But God, I am in obedience in doing this and making this a priority out of anything else going on in my life. God, I just pray that you bless this day. I pray you bless this work that we're doing. And it's in your name. Amen. All right. So you may be wondering to yourself, what am I doing here? It's 6:43 in the morning. I got here officially at 6:15. I've set this up before, but I haven't actually recorded anything, and it's still recording 2 minutes in. There you go. But you might be wondering, hey, why the heck am I listening to this? Well, the theme of the show is business as usual, and we know that there's so much craziness going on in our world. I'm a 31-year-old man where, let's put it this way. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, United States, and every presidential election so far that we've had in this nation, I would say we've had bad candidates to choose from. Out of all the different choices out there, we're left with these folks leading our country and also all of these elected congressmen and everything like that. We have earthquakes, we have wars, we have torrential storms, we have shootings. I mean, God, just this morning, it's like every weekend you wake up to some news headline of like, oh yeah, 3 dead, 4 injured in a Seattle food festival shooting. I haven't read anything about that story, but like, a shooting like in a food festival? People are just eating. Like, come on. It's just all sorts of problems going on in the world, macro. And then there's stuff going on personally in our lives. I mean, I don't know who the heck you are listening to this show, but you got all sorts of problems. You're not as fit as you want to be. You're not as tall as you want to be. You're not as strong as you want to be. You're probably a little dumber than you would like to be. Oh God, I had a moment. This has happened 2 weeks in a row now. I'm the cook of our house, and I get groceries as well. So I go to neighborhood Walmart because, I don't have enough food to get organic. I don't have enough money to get organic groceries, as my old boss would say. My boss would say when we get like a really good deal, he'd be like, I can get organic food now. But 2 weeks in a row, I go, I pick up all the bags, leave, and then some Walmart worker has to run over to me and say, like, hey, you forgot some groceries. And I'm just like, 2 weeks in a row? God, I got to pay attention more. What is going on? So you might be dumber than you want to be. You might not be where you want to be in your career or your life. You may be married and you don't want to be married. You may be single, you may have kids, you may not have kids, and you want kids. Spiritually, you might not be there with your faith. I'm a Christian man, grew up in the church, and have, thank the Lord, stuck with it. I don't know where you're at with your faith, but hey, you might not be in a good spot with it. We have a lot of, doubts and concerns about like, how do you fit in this wild world? But at the end of the day, so much of this is just business as usual. And what we have to do as a society is we have to say, hey, there's all this craziness going on in the world. How the heck do we digest it? How do we even think about it in the first place? Is there a place for you to be able to deal with some of these giant problems in the world? Um, but at the end of the day, there's a much smaller world around you that you have control over that we should spend our time dealing with. We should spend our time really wrestling with friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, personal life ambitions that you have control over, to where honestly, my belief is that, you know, you not being a problem is part of what helps this whole world. Taking ownership of our lives, being able to take as much control as possible of all the different circumstances we have control over and doing a great job with it. That's how we can make this world a better place, one person at a time. So, business as usual. This show is all about me on a weekly basis, taking this time out to just have a transparent digest. Everything I read in headlines and news articles, everything I deal with running a small bookkeeping CFO services company, everything I deal with having a young family, being a 31-year-old guy, and all of my background and everything like that. And then just, having a digest, transparent space for all of y'all to consider yourselves in the mix of it as well. Boy, I think probably the best way that you can interact with a show like this is hearing my grumblings and my, thoughts and open transparency, and then reflecting yourselves. Or maybe you find this to be an entertaining time to just listen to somebody yap about whatever. One of the reasons why I want to do a show like this where it's just me for an hour or more is there's other shows that I like that are very similar. Theo Von does solo episodes that are pretty fun. The Tim Dillon show is fantastic. This will be a much less crude version of the Tim Dillon show, but he's a fabulous ranter. Then you have some OGs like Bill Burr. I never really took on to Mark Maron, but he's an OG solo podcaster. That muscle to me is so interesting, that somebody can just really hold and engage an audience for over an hour by themselves talking. And so that's something that I would want to see if I could replicate, see if I can build up something like that. But I have a plan and agenda for today, but building that muscle, being there as a transparent resource for anyone listening that resonates with some of the things that are going on in this world, and saying, hey, how do we deal with all this stuff? And at the end of the day, the whole theme of this show is just, hey, look, there's a lot of this stuff that's fortunately or unfortunately business as usual. So how do we just deal with what we have going on right now for ourselves? There will be a good bit of business talk in this show, because, I run a business. There'll probably be lots of things about that, but also, personal life testimonies and principles. And there might be some interviews. What are some of the other things I've thought of? I could figure out another mic and do interview styles, maybe have people on Zoom and figure that out. I literally just figured out how to connect this camera to the laptop like last week. So I'm up and running today. So that's good. And I didn't even verify I've had enough space on this computer for this hour-long episode. So hopefully that's not a problem. But all right, so that's kind of the structure. I'll probably weave in other fun ideas as I actually get started. And I think probably the best way to start this is if you're going to take this journey with me on navigating life, navigating all the world deals with, and then finding a little bit of fun, a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of, um, just good conversation to carry on. I thought the best way to start is to start with kind of where my life is at right now. Very first episode. This is July 27th when I'm recording this. 2026, 31 years old, white male, as you can tell on this video podcast. I want to just kind of recount where I'm at in life, how the first half of this year has gone, everything like that. So, like I mentioned, there's a lot of business details that I'll go on in this podcast. That's because I run a business that's called Get Better Bookkeeping. We're based in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I've been at this for 3.5 years now. And I started day one, January 1st, 2023, after about 5 months of prep, and jumped ship from my previous job. It was a little bit of a month or so carryover to just let them be able to take care of clients that I was dealing with. I had experience for 5 years, crazy as it seems with my age, 5 years of being a business coach. And so for that, there's like a month or so where they needed to transition those clients over to other coaches. But I run a bookkeeping firm. So, is that the same as taxes or my tax accountant or so just for layman terms, we help business owners track all the money that comes in and all the money that goes out on a regular basis in primarily QuickBooks Online so that they can use that information readily to be able to make better financial decisions about what's going on. That's also where the CFO guidance comes in, where we require financial review meetings with all of our clients as frequently as they would like to have those meetings with us. So yeah, day one, January 1st, 2023, I just jumped ship, went full bore into this work. And crazy enough, I had 10 clients on day one that we were dealing with. So I needed a bookkeeper. And I found a godsend of a bookkeeper who had like 30 years of experience, more than that. She had like 30 years of experience in her own husband's plumbing company and had helped other clients on the side and had experience prior to that. So I had like a fabulous first pick, a very lucky first pick of a hire. But man, there's been all sorts of ups and downs with getting this bookkeeping business going. But as you can see, I have a nice little office now. We've had this at the end of this year. It'll be 3 years with this lease. Because after the first year, I was in a co-working space for the first year. And after that, we ended up going into this spot. Nice little 850 square foot place. But now we do the books for about 120 companies across the country. And when I say across the country, literally, there's that map right there. That's literally from Hawaii to Brooklyn. I just love saying that phrase. It's so fun. And then I love telling folks that I'd want to get as far east as possible. So if you're listening from New Hampshire or Maine, and you run a business, I want to talk to you. But yeah, 120 companies. And that's, like I said, a lot of lessons, a lot of learning curves. I can't do anything without the team around me. We're about to bring on a couple of part-time associate bookkeepers, so that'll round us out to about 13 people in this company. A majority full-time, probably about 8 or so full-time people, 8 to 10 full-time, 8 to 9 full-time people. And then the rest of them are part-time folks, and some of them contracted. Like my wife, she'll help out with social media and other kinds of administrative things on Mondays for like 5 hours or so. Um, but yeah, oh yeah, here's the number: 6 core bookkeepers, 3 associates. Like I said, 2 of them are coming on next Monday. And yeah, there's just a lot that has been fortunate about this business. I can't thank God enough about how this has gone. And there's a lot that I will probably share and talk about in regards to what has gone down with this business, but that's for another time. But speaking of thanking God, I kind of have to talk a little bit about my faith journey, because I am a Christian. This podcast will go into, having a prayer at some point throughout the pod episode. And on top of that, I'll probably bring up scriptures that my wife and I is reading. We've been going through the word most evenings before bed. Faith is an important part of my life, for sure. You could say, well, you were born into it, or you had a family that made it important, and that's why it's important to you. Maybe, yeah. I think there's some argument to that, But I'm very thankful that I have a Lord and Savior in God that I can worship, and He speaks to me, and He guides my life in spite of the sinfulness, ups and downs, insecurities, and everything about us that makes us human and flawed. In spite of all that, I just have to look at my life and just thank God. Because this decision to go off and do Get Better Bookkeeping, it's been one of those decisions that's helped me be the most connected in my journey with the Lord. I've had to put the most trust and faith and hope and assurance that, hey, things are actually going to work out fine with this business. Sorry, just putting a lid on my coffee mug. Side note, I'm kind of under the belief that mugs, yes, mugs are fine, but man, you need a lid and something like this small little cup here. This is like my perfect little cup. Now, the bottom design here, you can see this on the podcast video. The bottom design, this it's nice and seamless, but for car cup holders, doesn't really fit in there. So it makes it a little bit of a juggling, bouncing act where I just place it kind of by the stick shift and hope nothing bad happens. And that's why there's a lid. Nothing's supposed to, but anywho, I was talking about my faith. Yeah. So, in spite of the lack of faith I've had, the disconnectedness I've had, the selfishness and arrogance that I grew up with, the laziness that I had, He has still been connected with me and has answered prayers and has brought me to a spot in my life right now where, really I've been the most dedicated in my just routine and discipline with the Lord as I've had before. I read the word just about every day. I pray just about every day to the Lord. Sometimes for longer stints, sometimes short periods. Basically from the beginning of the year, a little bit in the fourth quarter last year, I started an Acts, and then recently finished up from Acts all the way through Revelation. Read Revelation for the first time. Crazy book. I don't really know how to digest that book. But now I'm going to go through the Gospels for the rest of this year. And when I read the word, I don't just read it and leave it off. I read it and then highlight specific verses and try to consider and take notes about what those scriptures might mean in my life currently, or things that, pointed out to me that seem interesting. But I also kind of have a spiritual mentor. Yes, I've got my parents that are that way and other people I could call on, but there's an old ORU professor that I reconnected with recently. And since fourth quarter last year, we've met up at least like once a month. And yeah, kept up, talked about life. He's I'd say a pretty decent friend of mine now. But any kind of random thing I'm wrestling with a word, he really speaks to in a very friendly way, for sure, without talking over me, condemning me, or leaving me at a spot where he's just like, yeah, I don't know, man. He's really done his diligence to study the word and has a very, very unique prayer life and reliance on the Lord that you just don't hear from people these days. I'm sure at some point I'll bring him on the podcast to interview him. Jumping out on a business like this, it's definitely one of those things where like every single month at times I'm like, okay, God, I don't know how this is supposed to work out, but here you go. Had that a lot of anxiety first year or so. And I'd say this year, there's a certain moment I'll talk about later this year this is our fourth, in the midst of our fourth year in business. And, not that I couldn't have worries or anxieties about how we're growing or how much money we're making or stuff like that. But I got to say that this year, I'd say for the past few months, I have had a lot less worry and stress, even though I totally could. I totally could. I've had a lot less worry and stress and anxiety about how stuff's going. So yeah, I got to think about that more. But that's really good. So this is part of my life. This will be part of this pod, and hopefully you're into it. Maybe you're not. If you're not, then keep listening in case I'm still entertaining, or don't listen to this. And then, yeah, that's, I guess, great too. Because who the heck knows? I have no agenda with this podcast. I've thought about podcasts for years upon years. In fact, I did a podcast in 2018 where at the time I thought it was such a problem, and it's still a problem actually, that nobody knows anything about local elections and like local politics. One, because nobody cares, but two, I mean, we should care. But two, there's not any kind of like direct source that could really educate people about like Oklahoma politics and what the heck's going on. Specifically with that topic, except for, you got random news agencies with this is the Oklahoma politics and stuff is just like a certain part of a sea of all sorts of topics about crime and schools, everything like that. So I tried to record a podcast, had mics, talk through details, articles, all that kind of stuff. I did 5 episodes, and then that was it. I did not grasp yet how much effort and time you have to spend on a podcast to really make it good and really make it long lasting. And that's why I've been so hesitant about trying it again, this other one, or even doing like video influencer content or stuff like that, because that's all the rage nowadays, everybody wants to be some like celebrity podcaster or content creator or something like that. Not everybody, but it's just makes it look like everybody wants to do that, plus with the amount of content people watch on social media and stuff like that. So it's always just been something like, should I go into this? And I've always thought, no, I shouldn't. Because one, I don't know that I want to sign up for something that I have to commit years and years to. And no matter how many people I talk to that are in business where they're just like, oh, well, no, just do like short little clips and then just give it a shot. See how it goes. That's not how you do well in podcasting. All of the big podcasts out there, they were at it for years and years and years and years. And then traffic came. It's just, you can't ignore that this is how you build a podcast people listen to. Any kind of content creating, like you just go for it and you just keep going for it until it's finally like really good and it builds an audience that people appreciate. So, and even if it doesn't build a giant audience, like for my field, accounting work, there's some guy that has like less than 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he's doing real well for himself. So it's like, you don't have to have a giant audience. But 50,000 people, it's a lot of people. I've considered doing this, but because of how committed you have to be with it, and just feeling like you're part of the noise of sea of all these wannabe people, like thinking I'm going to be someone that's just so much better than everyone else. Like, really? Yeah, that's why I always second guessed. And then I even made an attempt earlier this year. I was like, I think we're going to do it. But I skimped around and I used equipment that, was old recording equipment from when I made a little bit of amateur music. And, I made it very like I kind of made it non-committal. I was like, okay, I'm going to try it, but I'm not going to put out any podcasts live. I'm just going to like see if I stay consistent. It was very weak, weak commitment. So this is me not being weak in my commitment because, as crazy as it seems, I go to Victory Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, big church. I would say quality church though, for sure. And, just about every aspect. We're actually going to take our 4-year-old boy. He's going to be 4 next week. Within a week, he's going to be 4. No, actually, next Monday, he's going to be 4. There you go. But we're going to take him to pre-K over there at Victory, so that's fun. But anyways, beginning of this month, July, we're in there for a sermon from a guest speaker, and he gives a very, very basic sermon, which is good at times, to really reinforce some of the basic things about our faith. And one of them is, he just encourages us, we have to say yes more to things. Like, just say yes. It makes me think of the Yes Man movie, Jim Carrey. That's right. Yes, say yes. Yes, man. Okay. Anyways, but that's what he did. And as I'm sitting there listening, praying to myself, because you can actively pray through a sermon to say, Lord, what are you saying in this sermon that really speaks to me, resonates with me, all that kind of stuff. By the end of it, I again consider, am I saying no to anything to the Lord? And out of all the other things that could be more noble or considerate, or well-meaning, and like volunteering and stuff like that, this podcast came up. It's like doing a podcast. I was like, God, really? Out of all the things that you want to convict me on or like tell me that I should do with my time and effort, a podcast. This is what you want me to, this is what I'm saying no to? Okay. So here I am. I have, I have no agendas. I have no anything like that other than what I've expressed about what the theme is going to be for this show, and how I'm going to try and do a great job with it. There's no, I have no idea what kind of audience is built up from this. I have no idea what this is going to evolve to. I have no idea how many years the Lord is going to have me do this, but here I am. So anyways, that's enough about my faith. Let's talk through, there's so many other aspects of my life. I got my family. I got 2 little boys. Like I said, my first one's almost going to be 4, and I got a 1.5-year-old boys. They're great little guys. The 1.5-year-old likes me more. And my 4-year-old, I'm just going to call him 4 now. My 4-year-old, he's more so a mama's boy, which, yeah, it's fine. I think I was a little bit more a mama's boy at some point for a few years of my childhood. Those are my 2 kids, and I have a beautiful wife. This August is going to be 5 years that we've been married, so that's fun. And so we're planning on taking a trip out to a yurt in Arkansas. I don't know how that came across my feed, but I was like, let's do an Airbnb, find a spot. And then I saw this yurt in Arkansas. I was like, I've never been at a yurt. So let's do that. But no, she's great. She's a great mom. She's a dance teacher around town as well. So does some impressive routines and choreography, and also herself. And, one of the reasons why I married her is there's no one that's ever loved me more than she has. Except my parents, but that's, you can't marry your parents for very good reasons. But yeah, for our marriage, one of the things we figured out last year is just like you can't get away from, you have to do this, is weekly date nights. And so we made it a little fun and interesting last year, and we finished it on my birthday conveniently this year, April 30th, where we went through the whole alphabet. So from A to Z, we went through different restaurants every week or so. And one of my rules is to make sure we can't pick some chain or national, even regional thing as much as possible. Like, you can't go to Applebee's on A. So we went to, I think it was Albert G's Barbecue here in Tulsa. But we went through the whole alphabet. So that was a fun little series to kind of make things interesting with our date nights. And my family as well, we have a pretty big family of connected cousins and relatives and stuff. I'm actually part of a planning committee for our, every 3 or 4 years, we have family reunions. So I'm in a planning committee for that for next year, next Christmas. But I've taken multiple trips to see my parents, and then even some family. We went out there. I went for my niece's high school graduation up in North Dakota and went and visited them. And so it's amazing the kind of rest that you get when your children are not around. It was just me out there. So I had some good rest during that weekend. But all right, and then other aspects, I do try to work out on a semi-regular basis to keep up fitness. My main motivation is just, hey, I need to keep up with my kids as they grow up older, And last year, I would say, is actually the year I worked out the most consistently ever. And I'd say one of the big ingredients is I figured out how to wake up early and go to the gym. So that was a big deal. And so I've been off and on like fitness challenges and stuff like that. Of like right now, I'm trying to be a good boy and see if I can lower my body fat percentage. But honestly, like I'm still somewhat of a smaller guy in stature. But man, I've been a twig before. I remember those days very vividly. I've been a twig where I'm like 5'6", 5'7", and I'm like 130 pounds. When I graduated college, I was like 140. And so I'm now 170, and I fit in large shirts now, which I used to think was like crazy to be able to do that. And so, no, I feel pretty decent about my fitness, honestly, and my physique. I'm not trying to be, again, this is one of those things about like influencer podcast people or people that like have figured everything out. They're all swole and jacked as heck. They're all very muscular. They all, commit to being bald or wear, hats and just like always, talking very intensively, And I'm just like, God, That just doesn't resonate with me, like I'm not some like jockey, manimal person. But I want to have a, decent physique because it's a good thing to do. But I like my wine and I like pizza. Um, so anyways, and then for fun stuff, I don't know. Um, it's tough to have hobbies, fun things, really, in this season where you're working at least 40, if not 50 hours a week, usually. Getting up early to do podcasts like this, I guess I'm going to consider this fun. I don't know what category I want to put this podcast in. So it's tough to have hobbies, but a very surprising thing this year is that I'm trying to get good at golf. And I say it's surprising. I did not start with this as a goal for me for this year. But we got a client who's a golf simulator place in town, like a place where you go indoors and you hit a golf ball on a bed sheet and then it, tells you where the ball goes and stuff. So you go in there and then it's very high tech and detailed. And we made some arrangement with working with us where basically we just get to go in there whenever we want. So I'm like, I could get good at golf. What the heck? And then beyond that, my operations manager, her husband, was like a golf fitter for Top Golf and tried to be a pro golfer as well. So he's really good. So I had a session with him and he actually helped me figure out getting a brand new set of clubs. That was like the first gift the company ever gave me. Shout out to Get Better Bookkeeping. They bought me a new set of golf clubs. But from a year where I didn't even think golf would be a big part of it to like, oh, wow, I have a new set of clubs. I have a place I can go and practice weekly. And then I'm no other people that I want to play golf with. They have fun time with it. And it's just like, whoa, I could get good. Okay. Interesting. But I don't know, just other fun things. I've been to pro sports games, the 3 of them this year. That's kind of odd. Usually it's maybe 1 a year. But celebrated a buddy of mine's birthday in Texas on the lake. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'd say that's kind of a snapshot of my life right now. I've got a company. I work on this company. That's most of my time. And then stay pretty dedicated to my faith, pouring into the Lord, seeing what he has for me for my life. I got a family that loves me, and I love them. I have 2 little boys, try to make sure I'm a good dad for. That's why I'm just trying to say somewhat fit. And I support the family by, I guess I'm mowing the yard now. I'll talk about that later. But yes, I mowed the yard yesterday. I am the main cook for the house and everything like that. Danielle picks up, all the other details of the house that I just frankly don't care about. And then you try to have fun in the little other spots, So that's where I'm at with my life. And where we're going to go for the rest of this year, since I'm sure you're wondering, okay, well, that's the first half. Where are we going from here? Well, first, there's a lot of different things, first of all, that I'm not going to share all of right now because I don't know when this battery's going to die on this camera, or I don't know how much space is on this computer for this. But for the company, there's a couple of things I'll share. I've definitely got a core group of team members that have been with me for years now. And so one of my colleagues has really led this initiative to getting associates around us so that the bookkeepers can pass on a lot of the routine, regular work that happens on people's accounts. And according to my colleague, he did the math, and based upon all the clients that we have, he thinks we can very realistically delegate 240 hours a month to associates. The cost of a regular bookkeeper to an associate is like cuts down by like $10 an hour less. So apparently, if we dedicate all these 240 hours to these associates for our bookkeepers, we save somewhere around $30,000. And then beyond that, if the core bookkeepers, they have all this free time, and they can either breathe a little easier, or we actually can add more clients to them, So huge deal if it really works. You learn to be extremely skeptical in running your business, but if it really works, man, that's a huge deal. And then just like every other company out there, we're trying to get AI integrated with our work, and particularly with the accounting bookkeeping field. This is the first year where companies have really made strides to make it part of their work. So we've already used it on some use cases with clients, and we're just going to continue to do that as well. So that's one big thing. Another big thing with us is we have had such a hassle on management softwares for our company. Just a lot of indecisiveness, honestly. And then anytime I personally try to get into learning a software or utilizing it, it's like I hit a wall in my brain that I just can't get past. So thankfully I have an operations manager who she like gets really nerdy about that stuff. But we were on something, and then earlier this year we rage quit that something. And then we looked at software that are used by all sorts of other accounting firms out there. And we just kept thinking about all the ways that it would not work with our team or wouldn't be useful. And so at the end of the day, we're just like, you know what? I think we're too special. So we're just going to build our own thing and pay a guy. We were going to pay a software company for a year like $1,200 a month. And so we're like, hey, we're just going to pay this local guy that my ops manager and I like to just build something for us. So we're going to blaze a trail there, but that should be very interesting and hopefully very useful. If not, I will want to kill myself, but I'm not going to because but I still have a family. But no, it's just we've had a lot of frustrations with this, like picking a software to use to manage the company and everything going forward. So, I mentioned reading the Gospels by the end of the year, so that's going to happen. I'll share revelations, fun thoughts about that. There are other fun things going on for the rest of the year. Yes, wife and I's anniversary, but in September, I have like 3 trips going on in September. But, oh yeah, we're going to go to Branson. That's an annual thing. Labor Day weekend, we go up there, Branson, Missouri. But I'm taking the company, most of the people on this team, on a cruise. And that was kind of the fun thing. I got to reveal to everyone for Christmas last year. So that is very fun that we're going to be able to do that. And then, yeah, getting to go to golf. I would say one of my goals for the year before it really gets to winter and it's cold is that I can shoot under 100 kind of consistently, which might not sound like it's asking for a lot, but for somebody who's never played at golf, that, that's like impossible. There's a part where like you get from super amateur to not looking embarrassing, completely embarrassing on a golf course. That's where I'm at. I'm not completely embarrassing. And on some occasions, I'm actually like, hey, he's got some skill. So I'm like somewhere in there, completely embarrassing and got some skill. So I would say I want to go to the got some skill part by being under 100 consistently on my scores in a round of golf. And then I'd like to shoot one time under 90. That to me would tell me that I've made some good efforts this year. But I don't know if I'm practicing enough because like I'll get out once a week to the simulator place, and I've played just 2 rounds of golf actually this year in real life. But man, there's some dudes are playing multiple times a week on a real course, and like they just can't get enough of it. I'm not a very obsessive guy. So that's like a lot. But um yeah, so this is my life. And again, the theme of the show is that, hey, how do you balance all of this stuff that you feel like you want to do and work on whenever there is so much going on in life, in the world, in general, where you're like, oh my God, how do you deal with all this? What? Um, and then even the stuff that you can control, like for instance, I've got this little, I do paper to-do lists. I've been back and forth on to-do lists and now back on the good old paper to-do list. But man, I very quickly have just built up a pile of items to take care of that I don't even know how I can get to all this stuff. So that would be one of the things today, is to literally just take time to plan and figure out when I can set aside time for all this random stuff. Because yeah, I swear, let me just count them. I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, let's call it 20. I have 20 items left over from last week. And then I have a full week this week. I mean, if you were to see my calendar, it's always full. There's always items in there to take care of. Thankfully, there's less and less like client meetings that I'm having because, my other colleagues taking care of a lot of those. So that's fun to just work on the business. But, a lot of these items are just help and support clients in a little more sophisticated ways. Yeah, so you balance, it's always this juggling act, especially running a business, of like, you don't know what to prioritize. There's always something to do. And so you could either choose to get overwhelmed and freak out, or become a workaholic, and then you disregard all the other things that really matter more, like your family and friendships and fun things and whatever. Or you can say, which is something that I think I've successfully done for the most part, you can say, hey, if you're never going to be done with work, that means it's always going to be there. So do not think that you're going to get through your to-do list like ever. Because even if there's spots where you feel like you've gone through everything, it's like a false peak. If everyone has done hiking up mountains, trails, you have these false peaks where you're like, oh, I think I'm close to the top. And then you get there and you're like, oh God, there's this other peak that's way up there. So you're never done with work. So there's always something to do. So I'd say it's wisdom to be able to take that problem and say, hey, you know what? Okay, great. I'm never going to hope to be done with everything I want to do. So we're going to just find points to cut off and spend time doing other things that are a lot more interesting and fun and actually have meaning, Not that my work doesn't have meaning. There's very good things that we're doing with our work, but you get what I'm saying. Okay. We got close to an hour on just that, on me yammering, so that's good. But yeah, future shows, we'll talk about all the different articles or things going on in the world and in business. Give you updates about what's going on a weekly basis, a little more granularly of what I'm wrestling with as a business owner, and then also what I wrestle with as a dad, as a husband, everything like that. Again, a very transparent digest, and then if that's something that's interesting to all of y'all, then great. But if it's not, then I guess also great, because I'm just going to keep doing this. Just going to keep doing this. And yeah, I'm going to have a fun time doing it. But anyways, I'm going to sign off. May you have a blessed and lovely week, and I'll see you next time.